Hi everyone, it's B. Chavez from Evil Genius Sports Performance. I'd like to welcome you back to another EvilGSP question and answer video. And today I have 3 questions culled out. I want to make specific mention, I did in fact cherry pick these. I did get a lot of questions this particular 2-3 month period, and a number of them, almost an inordinate number of them, related to nitrogen, protein intake, protein selection, protein timing, all of that sort of thing. So I culled out 3 questions that I thought would be useful and kind of universal to everyone, and I thought I'd answer them here. And just a little side note, interestingly, all of these questions came to me via the Google Plus social media vector. You Google Plus people just seem to be a little bit more active with my material, so I look at it a little closer, filter it a little tighter, and try to reward it a little more. So, 3 questions all related to dietary protein. First question, very straightforward. Do I need protein supplements? If you watched any of my other videos, you should immediately know that my answer to that would be no. Do you need them? No. Can they be useful, beneficial, cost-effective? Maybe not cost-effective, but certainly useful, beneficial, convenient, absolutely. So, do you need them? Not at all. Can you use them? Is there a place for them in your diet? Very almost certainly. First thing I'd like to reinforce, again, go back and watch some of my videos on nutrition and protein supplements. And the first thing you'll find is I really take issue with the word supplement. They're not supplements. They're food. They have calories. They contain a macronutrient. They're food. So do you need expensive, packaged, refined protein foods? Probably not. Actually, almost certainly not. Can they be useful? Sure. They have a long shelf life. They're convenient. They're easy to store, easy to transport. They have a lot of benefits per se. So, am I down on them? Not so much. Is there a need for them? Absolutely not. Just as a quick example, a 220-pound male, so a 100-kilogram male. Typically, again, if you go back and watch my protein videos or, any basically mainstream material, you find 2 to 3 grams per kilogram as your target range for a strength athlete, bodybuilder, that sort of thing. So 200 to 300 grams of protein per day. Typically 6 meals a day, so take the high end, 300 grams, 6 meals, pretty simple math. It's 50 grams per feeding, per meal. I like the word feeding over meal, but it's interchangeable essentially for this in this context. So 50 grams per meal, 6 times a day. Super simple. 50 grams. Almost everybody out there goes, oh, that's, 2 scoops of my favorite protein, whatever. But let's talk food. That's pretty simple stuff. Your typical, chain store grocery beef patty, quarter pound, 20 to 25 grams, depending on leanness and that sort of thing. So 2 beef patties puts you 90 to 100% of the way towards your per meal protein requirement. Add some ancillary protein from the brown rice, from the whatever else is on your plate. It's pretty simple stuff. Granted, nobody wants to eat 2 beef patties 5 times a day, but you can swap out those beef patties with a commensurate amount of chicken, a commensurate amount of fish, bison, venison, shrimp. I don't need to list protein foods, but my point is that's a very consumable volume of food per day. Yes, not everybody wants to eat that much food. Not everybody can eat that much food. Perhaps you don't have time to transport it, warm it, all of that, sure. And in all of those possibilities, a packaged protein supplement could be completely valid. Absolutely. But do you need them? Not at all. Protein supplements as a packaged and commercial product, really only about 50 years old. People have been getting big and muscular for thousands of years. Certainly all the physiques of the early 20th century were not built on protein powders, and yet there were some very big muscular, humans in that time frame. So, do you need protein supplements? Absolutely not. Now, I know what the next question is, so I'm going to truncate my answer because I would answer the next question as part of the first question. The next question is, knowing your thoughts and ideas on dietary protein and protein supplements, how do you feel about MRPs? I would have answered this in the first question had I not known it was coming as a question of its own. I'm actually very big on MRPs, meal replacement products. It's meals in a packet, meals in a scoop. Little known fact, I actually worked for a company that worked for Met-Rx very early on. So I kind of subsidiarily worked for Met-Rx. And so Met-Rx is you're quick to my mind. It's a product that I'm intimate with, very familiar with, that sort of thing. So when I think MRP, I think Met-Rx, and as an example, it's a fine product. It's a very good product. Little known fact is when Met-Rx began, they actually tried to package, present, and retail their product as a food, specifically the idea of an engineered food. The FDA and a couple other agencies immediately came in and shut that down because to sell a product of that context the way they were, the only way they could legally do it is as a supplement and not as a food. To be a food, you have to fall under a whole different set of rules and regulations that made it far, far too expensive. But the reality is the concept of the original MRPs was that they are a food. They are everything you need to eat. It was like the spaceman meal. Like you could take this into outer space. You could take this on a submarine. You could live on this. And I love that as a concept. That is a great idea. But again, it was thought of as a food. It was a high-protein food, undoubtedly, but not sold as a supplement. It was actually sold as the food. Met-Rx actually took it so far as they actually considered the food in your diet a supplement to the Met-Rx, so it was a little extreme. But to answer the question, very, very big on MRPs. There's not as many on the market as there used to be. Met-Rx is still out there. Labrada makes a very fine MRP. There's a number of others. I actually can't bring another one to mind, but they're out there, and there are even a lot of internet recipes to formulate your own. You know, a certain amount of protein powder, a carbohydrate source like maybe oat flour or maltodextrin or something like that. Some cornstarch to thicken it. Some people even use instant pudding, protein powder and instant pudding, and then an amount of Vitargo or like any sort of carbohydrate. I've even seen people use white flour. Absolutely. It is a carbohydrate source. Probably not the one I'd choose, but there's a lot of recipes out there for do-it-yourself MRPs. And again, they have all those same kind of benefits. They're just very convenient. They're very easy to transport. You can make them anywhere. Literally, all you need is a liquid. It doesn't even have to be, milk or water. You can use fruit juice, or there's so many options. So yes, I'm very, very big on MRPs, despite I'm kind of down on protein powders or supplements. Again, because I don't really think of them as a supplement. I think of them as a food. So, yes, an MRP in a muffin or a piece of fruit or something like that's a completely acceptable meal in the EvilGSP, dietary paradigm. So, yes, big on MRPs, much more so than, packaged protein powders. Next and last question. If I was to buy a protein powder, what should I get? I'm assuming this question is not asking me about brand, but about actual protein matrix, because the brand is a whole separate video, kind of an expose kind of thing, because the reality is there's only a handful of brands out there. There's only a few, and I literally mean a few, major companies manufacturing dairy protein. So when you're buying whey protein concentrate, whey protein isolate, it's coming from a couple of major manufacturers. The rest is just repackaging, blending, marketing. So we won't even go into that. But the reality is there's only a couple of raw materials out there. But what I'm assuming this question is meaning to ask me, or at least a part of it I'm going to answer, is what kind of protein, what protein matrix, be it, whey protein concentrate, isolate, hydrolysate, should I get soy protein, that sort of thing, pea protein. I've seen all kinds of things. So that's the question I'm asking, is what protein substance should I buy? I'd reflect it to question one and say, really, you shouldn't necessarily be forced to buy anything. If you have money and a gap in your nutritional paradigm where you think a packaged protein is specifically beneficial and cost-effective, then you might want to consider buying a packaged protein. And unfortunately, the real accurate answer here is a little inconvenient. The real accurate answer is the more kinds of protein you consume, the greater the dietary diversity in all things, the more likely you are to hit the mark. So, almost anything you can name can be made into a powdered instantized protein, you probably should have some. That's really inconvenient, not cost effective. You can't have 17 containers of packaged protein, So most people fall back on one of the major indexes, the protein efficiency ratio, one of those type things, to just say this particular protein is very, very high quality. That's a completely valid method. In context to this conversation and to Evil Genius Sports Performance, I tend to lean more toward protein expression markers. And the biggest one of those, everybody out there is familiar with the idea of high leucine. The higher leucine content within a protein, typically the greater the protein expression on the muscle growth side. So with that in mind, that means you're typically looking at a dairy protein, probably a whey protein isolate or concentrate. When you get into the hydrosylates and the ion exchange, you're really just paying for complicated factory processes to make it a little bit smaller or a little bit cleaner. And the reality is most of the good research on the benefits of whey protein specifically almost all came from whey protein concentrate, which is actually the lowest tier. So if I was going to purchase or recommend that someone purchase a commercial protein powder, I would really stick with a very basic, very average whey protein concentrate. Yes, has a little bit more carbohydrate. Yes, has a little bit more residual sugar and all those things. But apparently, in with that carbohydrate and residual sugar is other things. And science hasn't fully elucidated what those other things are. Might be trace minerals, might be enzymes, might be, other protein matrices. It's not really clear what those things are, but those other things seem to have some health benefits, possibly outside of your sports performance, but health is definitely a component of sports performance. So if it can improve your immunity or your bone density or any of these other things that maybe it's doing, that's pretty positive. So a simple answer, or a complicated answer boiled down to a simple sentence, I would probably shoot for just a basic whey protein concentrate. Isolate at the outside, but I really wouldn't even spend that extra money. Whey protein concentrate's pretty cheap and pretty effective, and all the research pretty much verifies that. So I would stick to that. But again, I would strongly reflect to question one and say you don't need any of it. But if you have the dietary impetus within your lifestyle impetus and the finances to do so, whey protein concentrate. So there you go. EvilGSP question and answer session. 3 questions, all related to dietary nitrogen, dietary protein. So there you have it. B. Chavez, Evil Genius Sports Performance. Until next time, stay strong.